if you know where your flat thirds and thirds are, and you know what direction you're going in the scale you're using, you're almost guaranteed to make some cool phrases. Today is going to be an interesting one. I wanted to talk specifically about flat thirds and thirds and what we do with these notes. I know for many people trying to improvise on instruments, not only the guitar, but piano, any sort of instrument that you want to play some solos on or make some interesting phrases. A lot of people start by learning a ton of scales, your major, pentatonic, minor, pentatonic, Dorian, Mixolydian, then you get into altered and all of these crazy scales. And then you sit down and you try to make some phrases with all of this stuff. And for most of the time, you sit down and you have a hard time trying to make some phrases with all of this information. What helped me back in the day is stripping it all down and looking at just a couple notes and then seeing if I can make something interesting just out of a few notes. So the notes I wanted to talk about in particular is the flat third and the third. Specifically the third as kind of this pivot point where you can go in any direction of the scale and you can make some interesting things. To start us off, let's look at a simple B major arpeggio. So this B major arpeggio comes from this bar chord here. And the notes that we played there are the third, the 5, and the 1 here. So now if we just play those notes individually and try to make something interesting out of it, this is what we can get. That's what that sounds like. To me, it doesn't sound like anything too interesting. But let's take a look at introducing sliding into the third. So you're coming from the flat third, which is one note to the left of the third. So this note. And you're going into the third. Now you can do something like this. A little bit more interesting, doesn't it? So one thing we should take a note of is sliding into the third or approaching the third sounds cool. One thing we should take a note of as well is just landing on the third doesn't sound too interesting, right? As opposed to sliding into it, right? Now that we've covered this much, let's add one note below this note, which is B, which is our root. And now from that root, let's see what we come up with just the root, flat third, third, and then going up the arpeggio. We have... Sounds pretty cool already. Sounds pretty cool. So now up to now we've been only playing the flat third going into the third. But what if we go backwards? So going from the flat third and then back, we have this sort of sound. Which sounds okay to land on the 2, but you have this kind of sense of completion or sense that you've landed home if you continue to the 1. So you end up with something like this. So it has much more of a feeling of, oh, we've kind of reached the ending of the phrase, right? And so now you can start to think of the flat third as kind of this pivot point. So if you're playing a phrase that's ascending or going up, you can slide into the third. Or if you're playing a phrase going downwards, you can slide to the 2. So let's add a few more notes. So we have a root 5 third, root. Let's add the 5 down the octave, which is here. And let's add another third, which is here. So now you have and let's apply that same concept with the flat third and third. So we were doing this here. Let's do the same thing here. Now you kind of have this little pattern or device that you can do this type of thing here. So again, flat third, third. And now the only information you have is this triad with 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, and then you're just using these flat threes as pivot points. So if you're going up, you slide from the flat third to the third, or you slide from the flat third to this 2. So then everything else is just extra sauce. So if you wanted to add a 6, for example, so we have 3, 5, 6, and this makes it a major pentatonic scale. And then apply that same pivot concept from the flat third. And add the 6 here too. And then just with that, you have a pretty interesting device that you can use. It's reliable and it sounds cool. And this is what you can do with just knowing where that triad is on the neck, and then playing with that flat third, adding an extra note like a 6 or a 2 to give you some extra notes to play with as well. And if you really start to get inside notes that way, and you start to think about the function of the notes, what you end up communicating with the notes, you can make much more interesting phrases. And then when you do start to look at other scales, you do start to have a better, deeper understanding of, oh, a third is in this scale, or a flat third is in this scale, so it's probably going to sound like this. Anyways, I encourage you to see if you can take this information, put it over a backing track, and seeing if you can do some experimentation yourself, different rhythms, different speeds, and seeing what kind of phrases and melodies you can come up with yourself. But if you'd like a PDF of what I played earlier, plus the backing track of what I played, and a bit of a deeper explanation on the second half of what I played in the example earlier, you can go to the link in the description. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video, and good luck with your experimentation.